Welcome to EU Talk. We are launching today our EU Talk, our monthly conversations with Filipino interlocutors. And for the month of May, which also is Europe Day, our special guest is singer and advocate Kakie Pangilinan. And it's a pleasure to meet you virtually. I will say a word of explanation about the concept of EU Talk. EU Talk is our way of engaging with different personalities from the country. I just arrived in the country myself last February, and I'd like to learn more about the Philippines and the Filipinos. And since the Filipino are generally young, the Philippines has a very young population, so it's a pleasure to start these conversations with a young personality like you, and it will just be an informal chat, like Chikahan, I'm told it's called here.
Yeah, it's been very, very strange times as of late, because I think for the most part of 2020, having spent that in quarantine, a lot of it was just me sort of trying to adapt, trying to be okay, being a little bit more straightforward, thinking, okay, maybe this is fine, like I can do this, I can do quarantine, this is manageable. But I think now, coming to the second year of this, it feels as if it's really starting to get stuffy. It's starting to get, how do I put this, tense, I guess, more. It's been harder to stay distracted from things that are happening and constantly shifting and changing all around us. But it's also been nice to spend quality time with family. So
it's difficult to adjust to being a diplomat in times of social distancing. I think there is a sort of antinomy between social distancing and diplomacy. There are many challenges, but I'm also a father of two young adults, like you are, and I know it has been pretty tough for them. Because this is a time of life when social contacts are super important, and also for you as a creator, as someone who is in creation. Not to be able to necessarily meet your public, so to speak, must be something that has been a challenge for you. I had the pleasure to listen to your single on Spotify.
Oh
I think I can say Spotify because it's an EU company, so I probably can do that. But how has it been for you in terms of creation?
I think in terms of creation, there's not so much frustration, because I find that I've had this supercharged energy for the last few months. I've been super, super inspirationally charged, and thankfully I haven't found myself lacking in that inspiration or in prompts and things like that. The problem is I'm spending a lot more time online when I'd much rather prefer, still do, just sit outside and maybe just breathe in fresh air, sit under a tree, stay in the park, pick up some mangoes. I used to do that when I was really small. I would take a notebook and just sit in the garden or the farm and just absorb and see what's going on around me. And I think that was a big part of what really helped to keep my creative energy in focus. It was just observing the universe and observing the general vicinity of what's around me. And, it was just, that's really how I pluck my inspiration. It's really, what can I discuss? What can I talk about? But in addition to that, most of my frustrations actually have been the fact that this has been such a weird calamity. It's very, very strange because normally, the Philippines is very, very prone to natural disasters. We see that with typhoons, volcanic eruptions like last year, and things of that ilk. And when you were mentioning it being really, really hard for diplomacy right now and for any job that involves public work, I totally agree, because we don't get to meet and interact with people face to face and learn from them and hear their stories and really actually reach out and help. Normally, I think the response would be to pack up relief goods, right? And distribute them, help distribute them to reach out to towns and meet people and learn from them and see who needs help. But now because of social distancing, it's so hard to do that because you can't risk not only yourself and your family and your household, but also just people who are there and their families and their loved ones and their households and them. And it's a weird finding a balance and feeling sort of helpless because the best thing you can do for the people around you right now really is just to stay home as much as possible. And I'm not sure how you feel about that.
And at the same time, I think there is so much hunger for culture that I think we settle for virtual because we haven't been to live concerts in more than a year now. And we are so eager to listen to music, to see plays and so on, that, okay, we say, so too bad, but we go for virtual and we will still enjoy it.
Yeah.
So that we find new ways to, because I think there is so much hunger for live entertainment, or for live entertainment, that we are ready to settle for something virtual, and we start liking it. This is a strange moment. We are organizing a number of events now in the month of May, and we have a number of virtual events. So we will have a virtual Europinoi concert on the I think it's on the 4th of June at 6 p.m. I hope you will be able to join on Facebook, on the Facebook page of the delegation. I hope it's fun, but it's not the same as a live concert, right?
Yeah, it's definitely not ideal. I've only had a couple of live gigs in person. I opened for a concert once, and I was able to sing in a couple of fairs, school fairs and things like that. But I think that there's something really nice and strangely intimate about it, you know? Like, when you're there and when you're in front of lots of people, interacting with lots of people, all simultaneously at the same time, I feel a sort of strange sense of privacy in a very, very weird juxtapositional way. Like, this is it, we're in this moment now together, and it's really intimate. As I mentioned, it's like one big party, but then we're all in it together, we're all in the same moment together, and it's fun. I feel like I'm most myself in places like that, where I can feel really vulnerable and strong all at once, like vulnerable and still really safe and secure, and I really do miss that.
Definitely, because what changes actually is all the informal communication. Yeah. So basically now, if you want to communicate, you have to set an appointment. You have to book a Zoom conference or a WebEx or whatever. While in normal times you will walk in a corridor, you will just pop in and say, oh, by the way, or you would say, well, let's have a coffee, have something that I would need to understand, or something like this. The whole informality has disappeared. Now everything seems to be much more formal, much more formative. And this is the reason why everything takes more time. It's not that we are more efficient, that we are working more and so on. This is simply because a lot of the interaction we normally have with others is informal. And sometimes you sit down with someone, you don't even have to exchange words. You will see if someone is not comfortable with your idea, and it's much more difficult on Zoom.
Have you ever managed to have an inuman yet? Inuman, E for electronics, because it's done online. So inuman is like a drinking session, and then recently, because of pandemic times, we've sort of transformed the word and made it E-numan because it's online.
Mostly with family, because we arrived a few days before. Actually, I started to work in February when I presented my credentials, but we arrived in the country just a few days before Christmas. Oh. So basically our Christmas with the family back in Europe was virtual as well. I like adobo, for example, and I think also you are privileged, as you said. You talked about mango earlier. I mean, this is so interesting because this is probably one of the few countries in the world where you can have mango all year long.
Yes.
And this is certainly something I get to enjoy every day.
I think that online spaces are definitely getting more hostile, and the Philippines as a nation has always had a history of students, people my age, collegiate age students, being really pioneers of activism here, you know. And I would actually like to segue and take this time to remind everybody who's watching that if you are legally able to, please do register to vote for the 2022 elections, because registration is still open and it will be open until September. So if anybody's watching and you haven't registered yet, please do register to vote. You can go to bit.ly/irehistro.com. I believe that is the link, and there should be many more resources available online. But yeah, there's a lot of hostility. I'm not gonna lie. I think it's very, very palpable, and I think that that's exactly what makes it so. You know, it's for a while I was like, I found it hard to say because maybe I was in a bit of a denial moment, thinking that maybe it's not that hostile, maybe it's just my brain, but I do think that it's getting hostile. At the same time, the hostility and tension can only mean rise in action, and whenever there's a rise in action, right, there's an inevitable climax and then a resolution. And I think that that's something that I really like to remind people of. It's like when things get tense and when things get, that's exactly when we should all just continue to rise up, because I don't think that there's ever been any sort of real change that happens without that rise in tension. And that's just how things work. It's a beautiful part of life in any regard.
You are a young personality of your time, but also you are a woman, and it's important to hear from you. Maybe in the month of March, I've done a number of events for gender equality, meaning advocating for the rise of women. And in this country, I think women are very, very active in all sectors of the society, from business to politics to media, certainly. And you are an example of that at your own level. What do you think are the main challenges for women in the Filipino society?
A big challenge is that there really seems to be a lack of a real idea of what our brand of feminism really is. Because a lot of what we know about feminism, a lot of the theory, the critical thinking that goes back in time in history, these theories are from a Western perspective. They were written by Western people to suit Western ideologies, right? And so I think that it's important to recognize that those don't apply directly to us, because when I speak to some of my Western friends and things like that, I know that they have a certain idea of what feminism should be. And a lot of that did rub off on me because of social media days, you know. Social media has because social media platforms are Western, because they were built there and made there, like we can't help but be exposed to Western news and thinking, siguro, that's the universal truth. But it's not the universal truth, and I think that that's something that I really did realize just a couple of years ago, that you can't apply feminism as it is in America, for example, to what we need here, because that's not the feminism that we need here. And feminism is all about equal treatment of people, right? And so that means that every area you have to look at a different set of problems and therefore come up with different solutions also.
I would even dare to say, although I'm not best placed to do that, that even in the Western world there are different strands of feminism. I personally married a feminist. My daughter is a feminist. She's 26. And I can sense the difference between the two. One is more North American oriented, my daughter. The other is more a European feminist, and I can sense the sort of subtle differences in their approach to societal problems or issues related to women's rights or gender equality and so on. If there is something you would something tangible or not that you will take from Europe that you would think would fit in here in the Philippines, that would be actually a good thing to bring back to the Philippines?
I think that we actually do have a lot of similarities in the way that Europe functions and the way that the Philippines is. I think that we Europeans and Filipinos both really do value family and community. and we value that really deeply, just like we value our food and things. And I think that I love the architecture of Europe. I do love the architecture of Europe. I wish that, but the difference is being that I don't necessarily wish that we could take European architecture from Europe and just put it straight here, but I think I would love to take the amount of preservation that European architecture has, and I wish I could apply that to the preservation of our beautiful architecture here. Also, Ambassador, I feel like I might be biased, but as a Kapampangan on both sides, I definitely do think that you should go and visit Pampanga as soon as you can. It is the culinary capital of it is the culinary capital of the Philippines, and that just means that because I honestly like Filipino food better than any other food out there. That just means that to me it's probably the culinary capital of the world. I think that you should definitely go there because I'd love to visit too very soon. I haven't gone nearly as often as I would like, but the food is delicious. And it's so great being able to go back there and see. I just love greeneries and I like people, and yeah, I just miss the province, to be honest. I really do. So yeah, please do visit the provinces and Pampanga especially, because the food is unmatched. It's divine.
So I'm very, very grateful. You're leading the way here. You're the first guest on this EU Talk show, and I think it was a lovely conversation with you. And I hope we meet again, and at some point maybe we meet again in person. That would be very nice. And thank you very much. And I hope to see you soon. And I wish you every success in your endeavors.
You too, Ambassador. Thank you so much for having me.